very Protestant districts as well. And no, you didn't see the same people at that.
Okay.
But again, it wasn't like there was, that there was some sort of roadblock to attending.
Okay, all right.
I don't think that Martin Luther would have been welcome at the Council of Trent, but I mean, there were definitely people who had very strong Protestant inclinations at the Council of Trent, and vice versa at some of these Protestant councils. So yeah, it's really kind of a mantra.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions about this? Okay. I promise we'll get to the music. All right, so I wanted to bring this in because this is something that's really, it's a problem in history textbooks, it's a problem in music textbooks, because long, long ago in a galaxy far away, a guy named Gustav Ries, who was a musicologist, offered a translation of some of the Council of Trent decrees in his book, Renaissance Music. And he offered a translation which is really inaccurate and includes material that's not actually in those decrees. This is what the Council of Trent says on music. I'll actually read you the whole thing so you can hear the original thing. Which, okay, so like the Council of Trent, this is like a book of ecumenical decrees from different councils. Let me find it. There we go. That's like all the stuff that they talked about. A lot of stuff. And this, like the font of this book is tiny. You guys see all that stuff they talked about? This is the only time music gets mentioned in this discussion. So really, you can see that music was not a hot topic for the council. They left that to be up to the interpreters and the executors of decrees to make more firm decisions about music. But this is what they say. To avoid irreverence, each bishop should publish a prohibition to his own diocese against permitting a wandering and unknown priest to celebrate the Mass. And they must not allow anyone else whose guilt is public or notorious either to serve at the altar or to take part in divine worship. They must not allow this holy sacrifice to be celebrated by any secular, that means somebody who's just not known in the area, any secular or religious priests, whatever, in private houses, and wholly outside a church or the oratorios dedicated exclusively to divine worship, which are to be designed and visited by the bishops, nor before those attending have made plain by the proper ordering of their dress that they are present not only bodily, but with devout attention of mind and heart. And they should keep, and that's here we are now, and they should keep out of their churches the kind of music in which a bass, in which a bass's suggestive element is introduced into the organ playing or singing, and similarly all worldly activities, empty and secular conversion, walking about, noises and cries, so that the house of God may truly be called and be seen to be a house of prayer. That's it. You guys see anything in here about sequences getting axed, tropes getting axed? Anything about polyphony? A lot of people, unfortunately Bonds is among these, a lot of people fall in the pit of going on to include what Gustav Ries includes in his translation, which talks about, being able to hear things clearly, and he includes that, and you'll see that in your textbook if you haven't seen that already. That's actually coming from a later decree from 1565 that wasn't issued by the Council of Trent, but was issued later by Pius IV. And Ries introduces that, saying basically, these are things that are all closely related, but the way he presents it makes it seem like all of that stuff is from the Council of Trent decrees. It's not. And if you want the evidence, I brought the book with me if anyone wants to see what Ries wrote that literally everybody since then has quoted. So, all right. Sorry, any questions about the Council of Trent, what it actually says about music? It's pretty big, right? Yeah.
So maybe that most of the people that went to these councils were people divided.
Yeah.
Were people who studied music, somebody that even.
Right, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The people who were at the council were, priests, representatives of the emperor, representatives of different mayors, and, representatives of archbishops and so forth. A lot of these guys were representing, figures of power. But yeah, priests and canons and bishops were attending. They were people whose job was to interpret scripture and celebrate the Mass, right? Their job was not to perform music. That being said, a lot of these people brought with them musicians, and we can see from the letters coming in and out that music was talked about sort of in the background, right? But yeah, music was not focused on at all. In fact, the only context in which it gets focused on is in this last council, is kind of focus on pragmatic issues of the celebration of the Mass. Okay, music shouldn't distract people from other things. That's really what this is saying. we do get, now this is something I mentioned before, we do get kind of the generation after the Council of Trent coming in and taking a more specific stance on issues of music in mass, and issues of musical practice, sacred music practice in general. And really, I mean, I said this before, but just to say it again, the ideas that we have now as musicologists and scholars of the 21st century come from those people's writings after the Council of Trent. Looking at that short, that very, very short statement, the music should be distracting from other things, and saying, okay, here's what we can say more specifically about what we think the council intended. One of those people is, this is Everard McMurrian. He was a Jesuit. He was actually the vicar general of the Jesuits for a little while. Here we go. Yeah. And he was one of those figures that, within that kind of post-Council of Trent generation was pushing for very specific changes in music. This is from an ordinance that he published in 1573. And these are kind of four principles that he lays out in this as far as, what music should be taught to students that's going to later be used for religious purposes. And so this is like music in schools, but really pushing for kind of a religious, a religious context for this music. Students can sing ecclesiastic music, that's, music masses, sacred motets, Magnificat settings, this kind of thing. They can sing ecclesiastic music that has not been produced by heretics. Compositions with indecent text and music or an obscene or vain style should be burned. Superiors should examine all questionable compositions, taking account of every means of edification. It's like instruction, right? How can the music be used to instruct students? Students should not be allowed to buy, read, or keep any books that have not already been examined by superiors. And here's something hilarious. Have you guys heard of the composer Orlando di Lasso? You'll read about him, actually. His books were among those that were banned by this guy. So, I mean, he's got collections of sacred books that might have like one setting of, Ovid or something, or, one setting of eclogues with otherwise sacred music, and that should be burned according to this ordinance because it's got that one, sacred or secular source interfering or something. Any questions about this, though, about kind of what the Council of Trent says about music versus what executors of the Council of Trent's ideas were saying? Yeah.
So why did they have to burn them? Did they feel like there was some sort of evil spirits like penetrating their?
Oh.
It just seems ridiculous that they would like have to burn these books. Like, why don't they just like exclude them from being included in like
Well, like
walls?
you can't have these in the high school library.
Is that just like a like laying
I
down the
think
law or something?
this is a Jesuit perspective, and so this is a very specific
Right.
Catholic perspective at this time, which, at this time period at least, the Jesuits took really a very extreme interpretation of Council of Trent doctrine and Catholic doctrine. I think that what we're seeing is sort of a reflection of that very extreme attitude, but yeah, it's a good point.
So,
I
but it
don't know
actually
exactly
happened.
why it had to be burned, but maybe it was just,
But they did actually burn books.
Yeah.
That was okay.
yeah,
Was anything lost during
Oh,
that
I'm sure.
process? Like,
Yeah.
is it, okay.
I'm sure. The one thing that, of course, Lasso's books, some of Lasso's books were included in his list. Those obviously survive. And, I think you have to think about, okay, like, where did he have sway? Like, where did different people have sway? If something was being printed and issued in the hundreds and being purchased as far away as Paris and Rome and so forth, we're going to have something that survives. But, if he was speaking to one particular time and place where he might have had influence and probably did in other places. So, yeah. Other questions up to this point? Okay, not that. All right, turn to your handout really quick now if you would. Oh, here's something else I wanted to show you guys just for kicks. One of the things that the Council of Trent definitely did was push for revisions of core books like the Vulgate. A new version of the Vulgate called the Clementine Vulgate comes out about a couple decades after the council ended. These books, these are facsimiles of the new Breviary and Missal, which contain all of the musical studies and text and chant version for the proper and the ordinary of the Mass. And I wanted to show you guys these and definitely need these back. But these are facsimiles from those editions that came out. They're important for a couple of reasons, because first of all, it shows what the Council of Trent really was interested in. They were interested in this. They were interested in really core and long-standing traditions in the Catholic Church. And also because you can see, if you page through the beginning, you'll see that Palestrina actually worked on these books. So just to take a look at them, these are facsimiles. All right, but if you can, did anybody have extra handouts, by the way?
There's some down here.
Oh, cool. I do. Thanks. All right. This is a handout that I made a couple years ago, and what I want to show you guys with this handout is that although my argument is that the Council of Trent itself did not provide the impetus for a lot of musical changes that we see, the middle of the 16th century really is a pivot point for changes in musical styles. And those are coming as much from cultural things, from, moving away from the post-Josquin generation, from especially Venice having increasing import as a source for new musics,